Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devin. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or go to the website neverafacenetwork.com. On this episode, we have on Korby Lenker. Korby is a musician, author, actor, podcaster, and created a TV show called Morse Code, so pretty much every creative thing you can do. We talked about what being a parent teaches you about your own childhood, when quitting something opens up new doors for you, how Korby is redefining what success means to him now that he's a dad, what rhythms he's making to be more creative, mental space when you don't have the time to be creative, the importance of staying disciplined, having a studio in his backyard, going on midday walks with his wife, and helping with audition tapes at the end of the day. Morse Code is a show and is also a podcast that goes along with the themes of the show. You can find the pilot for the show on YouTube and the podcast where you find podcasts, or you can also go to korbylenker.com to find all the creative things he does. That link will be in the show notes. Just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad. It's really, I really think it's fascinating to share stories about parenthood with like the pretense of like, hey, you're figuring out, I'm figuring out this, talk about it. Cause I think we live in such like an Instagram world in which either everything's the most amazing thing ever or the worst thing ever. So, and I'm like, that neither are true. Neither is like, it can sometimes feel like the worst. It can sometimes feel like the best, but ultimately I don't think every day is either. It's usually kind of slow minutia to it. But yeah, so like whenever someone reaches out to me and is like, oh my gosh, I'd love to talk about being a dad, I'm really excited about it. I am like, well, this is the reason I'm doing the podcast, is when people see an opportunity to talk about being a dad, I want to share that energy, because I think parenting is one of the most ridiculous journeys you can possibly go on, challenges you in ways you never expect to be challenged. So like, if someone wants to talk, heck yeah. But then I look up and realize I've released 2 episodes a week for like 6 months. And I'm like, this is a lot of work. What am I doing here?
Yeah, I mean, I salute you though. That's pretty awesome. I mean, I think content is king these days, and the more fish you send into the water, the more you'll catch a larger fish.
Yes.
Something like that.
It feels sometimes like, I think making content, whatever you want to call it, and then putting it on socials and figuring out the algorithms feels like going up to the popular table in high school and being like, just tell me I'm pretty. Like, you guys like me, right? Like, you guys want to talk about me, right? And it's like, yeah, I think you have to constantly remind yourself of the energy of why you wanted to do a podcast, why you wanted to make a song in the first place, because the releasing marketing of it does just destroy you. It can get in your head so easily.
Yeah. As ever, I find that having fun along the way is the solution to many problems, imagined or otherwise.
Yes.
You know, I like when I was touring a lot, it was important to grow and have bigger audiences and hopefully sell more CDs back then and merch. And at the same time, you know, this wasn't something I realized at the beginning, but as time went on, I like looked around. I'm like, oh, this is your career. It was just like, you better enjoy this because this is what it is. And I found that I did enjoy it, you know, and until I didn't, and then I stopped doing it. So
yeah. How long were you
podcast?
Right. Yeah. Energy is good for it right now, but it is like, I'm also aware of like, yeah, if someone's like, how's the podcast go? I'm like, it's right now, it's good. I'm still talking to people. People still want to be a part of it. This is awesome. But with the full understanding, like in 6 months from now, the fatigue of doing this might just be like, I'm good. This now takes more energy than it gives. So
yeah. I have a great admiration for quitters in general. Actually, I say this in all sincerity, and this is probably a weird way to begin a podcast conversation about being a father, but
yes,
I was married and divorced a very long time ago. I got married super young, and this is more than 20 years ago. So it is cost me very little spiritual, emotional pain to talk about it now.
Yeah.
But it was extremely difficult at the time and sent my life in a different direction than it would have gone otherwise. But prior to that experience, I viewed divorce as like the great quit and the just totally terrible letting down of everyone around you, which I think it still is all of that. But at the same time, having gone through it and how it just took so long for either of us to let go. And we had, you know, no kids and no assets at the time and stuff. I realized that I have a softer position, I think, I guess I would say, toward that aspect of quitting. So there's an extreme example, but I also noticed that in my own life, like this friend of mine asked me like 2 months ago, we were shooting content for some songs I was putting
Yeah.
out. And he was like, when was the last time you quit? And what was that like for you?
Mm.
And I honestly, and this is not a boast, like it was a wake up moment for me. I could not remember the last time I quit. I am so, as one of my superpowers, I guess, or idiot behaviors, is that I'm a consummate finisher, or I just am tenacious, I guess I would
Yeah.
say. And I will not, I mean, I'm 10 years into a project right now that I am determined to sell. And this TV show that my wife and I are working on, and the podcast that I'm doing right now is part of it. And it's cost me a lot of other things.
Mhm.
And I'm just like, I don't know. It's just like, this is what it takes.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to do. So anyway, I say that all to say, I'm not sure that's, well, and so to quit, I imagine there would be a time when I'm like, okay, I'm kind of done with the podcast. It takes a lot of work. I could be doing other things. There are other things now I would rather do, or it's costing too much money, or whatever the reasons, are that for when you quit something. And that's a huge thing to do, to just be like,
Yeah. Well, because
all
it's,
that.
to me, it always comes back to like questions of identity. Like I've done this podcast for 4 years now. So like this podcast is part of my identity. So it doesn't feel like I'm like quitting a hobby. Like I'm not just like suddenly not playing basketball with friends anymore. It feels like I'm like, oh, I've this is all part of my natural rhythm now. So it is like, it feel interesting to me to look up one day and be like, yeah, I'm done. I quit. Cause I'm like, but this is part of you now. So like, I think that whole relationship is part of it too, is, when you make something part of yourself, how to step away from it because you think it's healthier to step away from it is, how the hell do you, I don't know the hell that looks like. I don't know. How do you have those conversations? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. Have you had to step away from something in the past, that something that comes to mind?
You know, what's interesting is the last time I quit something would have been a career, because I've been a stay-at-home parent since 2019. But like, I did quit a job, but also like to me, it's like I would never use the word quit, because I just entered into the next chapter of life. I entered into the next thing. To me, like quitting has such like a negative connotation to it for some reason. But like, so maybe I need to reassess my definition of quitting, because like last thing I quit would have been the reality of me having a traditional career of working a 9 to 5, doing all that stuff, to become someone where I'm primary parent. My whole responsibility is to make sure kids are taken care of. But like, I quit a job to do this, but like, this is better for me. I don't know. It's a very interesting relationship to have with the word quitting that I've not dived into.
Yeah. Well, it's also true. This like maybe gets us back toward the parent direction, that maybe one thing being a parent teaches you is that your life is not your own. That's nothing crazy to say, but you understand yourself in terms larger than you did when you were younger and single. Oh, and that's to say that like before I was married, and certainly before I had a child, I mean, I was numero uno concern, number 1 through 5. And I, was very ambitious and moved to, competitive industry town to see if I could, determined to make my way, and was willing to do anything. I mean, it really was like, I was just like, I will, I might not make it, but no one's going to work harder than me. That kind of idea. And now that is not my modus operandi, even though I'm still very ambitious. I married a very ambitious person.
Yeah.
And even in the context of parenting, we're, fairly ambitious, I guess, in terms of just like wanting to be good parents. But the success of my life, the terms of that success are defined more in more complicated ways, namely the happiness of my family, the happiness of my wife, the feeling of my house. Like, for me, peace in my home is maybe my highest priority.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not
Absolutely.
just peace, but just like joy, like when I come home, when I wake up in the morning and go to bed at night, I just want it to feel like, all right, this is where I belong. Like these are my people. I want my wife to be happy. I want my kid to be healthy. And I am part of that equation. I also would like to be happy and healthy insofar as I can,
Yes, I do. And like, so I have 3 kids. I have a 10-year-old daughter, 8-year-old daughter, and 4-year-old son. And like, to me, like it's not just like happiness, it's also creating like an environment of safety. where they can like come home from school and just be whatever they need to be. Like, I don't want my kids to, it's always an interesting relationship or dynamic to think about is like, I never want my kids to have to perform for me. Like, I never want my kids to be like, oh, I have to make sure my dad's happy. I have to make sure my dad likes me if I do that. Like, I don't want that to be part of our relationship. I want us to be able to have like adult conversations of like, hey, can you clean your room? And not them be like, yes, I want to make you happy. But like, just be like, yeah, sure, I'll go clean it. It's a mess. Like, I would want that level of leveling where if I can instill in my wife, myself, and my kids, like any sense of like, hey, you're loved, you're good. Like, and you don't need to do anything to earn my love more or something like that. Like that to me feels like I've done something right. And also I have no idea how to judge that. Like how the hell do I know if my kids believe that they're loved? I don't know. I just hopefully keep on positively rewarding and reinforcing the correct things and just keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah. How old's the oldest one?
10.
Yeah.
So she's in like 4th grade.
Great age. But yeah, I just feel like your kids, they're still in that phase of she still like adores her father.
Yeah, she still wants my approval. So So
time will tell.
Time will tell. It is one of like the unspoken things about parenting though, is like in other areas of life, when you invest a lot into something, you can usually have some idea of your return on investment. And how do you, whenever like you've got a kid, all the love you're pouring out to her, how do you know if it was the correct love to pour out to her? You hope, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that even if you did everything right, whatever that means,
yeah,
it could go south, for reasons beyond your control or who knows, mystery.
Yeah.
And so I hope to avoid that fate myself, but I've seen it happen in childhood friends that grew up with very similar situations as mine. And, they went a different way. So, it's interesting. I have a little brother. I'm the oldest of 3. My youngest sibling, my sister Kenna, passed away in 2019.
Okay.
So I'm like the oldest of 2, but I always think of myself as the oldest of 3. And my little brother went a much different direction. He's a pastor of a church in Washington State and had kids very early on. The oldest one is his first year freshman in college. And I'm a new dad I'm tail end of my 40s here.
Yeah.
And it's been interesting to have conversations with my brother about parenting and his own strategy. Like we grew up I like adore my father. I think if there's anything that I can point to as having helped me navigate my way through life's challenges, it was like having a very strong example of manhood, I guess, or like my dad was a very gentle person, but also just like the most solid person that not only we knew, like that anybody knew, just like utterly reliable. And, but he was also like a disciplinarian and like old school.
Yeah.
And we both were raised that way. And I don't even want to paint it too brightly because people were like, well, like we got spanked with a belt for things that I think you'd get put in, your kids would get taken away these days. Or,
it's not so normalized and I'm okay with that. But at one point in time, it's what you did.
Just is what you did. Right.
Yep.
And that's what happened to us. Not very often, very like rarely. And it was like always never kid in anger and that, whatever.
Yeah,
but
I gotcha.
My brother raised his 2 kids and he told me a really interesting story once in that he, early on and when they had done something like they knew what to be wrong and disciplinary action was in order, he kind of went old school, like our father on them. And he said, I saw the look in their face. They were afraid of me.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that. And I never did it again. And because we were kind of afraid of my dad, in those moments. And consequently, he told me kind of like his parenting strategy since then. And like he would talk to him in advance, like, okay, well, we really need this, routine to happen, or when you come home from school directly, whatever it is. And what do you think the punishment should be, if you don't do this? And he invited them into their process of their own punishment, in advance. Like, so it wasn't. And so when they did it, it was like, well, you created like, what to do. And they'd be like, okay, you know what I mean? Maybe that wouldn't work with every kid, but I took that as like a helpful hot tip for my future self.
I think it's, I really actually do believe in that style of just expectation setting. Cause that's all it is. It's like, hey, and to me, my hope is that it lifts my kids into my mental world. It's like, all right, cool. Like let's make sure to clean this up. Let's make sure to do this before we move on to the next thing. And if they're like, I don't want to, I'm like, cool. So for the rest of the day, and we're going to walk into this room and we're going to trip on everything for the rest of the day. I want to avoid that. I'm going to get annoyed at you guys for tripping on stuff for the rest of the day. I want us to clean the room right now. And then normally you're like, oh, cool, that makes sense. Now I understand why. And like, I always think kids are smarter and they comprehend more than you realize. And I think the authoritarian, like, do this or else is not that. It doesn't create love for me. If someone says do this or else, I'm not going to love you more. I'm going to figure out how to I'm going to push that line as much as I possibly can and see what you do. I'm going to be since you're being legalistic, I'm going to respond with legalism. And I'm like, well, that's not a relationship I want to be a part of. So, but it is interesting because like you do have the default thoughts in your head of like, well, I'm the one in charge. I'm the parent. I'm raising you. So I need to make sure I raise you right. And it's like, well, how do you like, I don't know if hitting your kid is what does that. So
I think I'm on board with the general consensus that there's better ways.
I think there are better ways to do it. And I think a lot of us are very eager to explore the better ways to do it. And with the full understanding of like, hey, that's what my parents, I think, only spanked me for like really bad things of like, hey, you lied, you blatantly lied and
Same.
Safety is involved.
Yeah.
You're going to get spanked to reinforce never do this again. As opposed to, I mean, my dad's generation, no, that gives, if you did something that pissed off a parent, it seemed like you got hit. So like it gets better with every generation, hopefully.
Yeah. You think yeah. I'll just leave that. I saw a friend of mine get hit in anger by his father once, and I was just like, I'm glad that's not happening in my house. Like it was scary, you know.
It is because it's physical violence. It's
and it also felt unglued. Yeah, it's physical and violence, and it was also like there was an air of passion. You know, like an out of control sense, and it was like you don't want to see your adults out of control, like anything. You know, drunk or angry or whatever.
No.
I would like to, you know, I was under the illusion that adults knew what was going on until about 7th grade. And I think that as long as, you know, you need to persist with that illusion for the longer, the better.
I think my parents never gave the illusion that they knew what they were doing, but more that they were responsible for what they were doing. So they were never like, we know how to raise kids right. We know what to do. They're like, we know we're trying our best.
Yeah.
And like, we're trying to be decent people as we do this. And for some reason, that variation, because like already as a parent, I don't want to ever lead with the sentiment of I know how to, like, I know what's right. Because it's like, I know what's right based on my own personal experience, my own upbringing, and my own cultural context and what I believe to be right or wrong. That doesn't mean I know what's right. That's an opportunity to communicate to your children your morals, your values, and like what you believe in. And to treat that as like an ultimate truth, I'm like, but it's not, it's your ultimate truth. It's not so.
Yeah. It's interesting because at the same time, you sort of want to, I don't know if I want to raise a family in a democracy exactly. You know what I mean?
It's delicate, like, man. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I don't want to be my kid's friend growing up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I want them to feel like they can tell me absolutely anything. That's super important to me. But I want them to look to me as a leader, you know, and I want to lead by example. And you know, beyond that, I think that's a really wise approach. And I think that your kids, what you just described is a wise approach. And I think that kids have a sense of their parents trying their best. Like I felt, you know, I would give my childhood a B maybe, which is pretty good.
That's
but
not bad.
Not for lack of, you know, but in terms of effort and like I can look back and whatever my gripes are or something I'm perhaps trying to improve on with my own try at this. I still know in my heart of hearts that my parents did their absolute best. And that goes almost the distance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It does. It does. Very much so. Well, I haven't even asked you yet how many, I know you said you're a newer dad or like how many kids you got, ages, all that good stuff.
One 14-month-old. She's about to turn 15 months. So we're just like, she's just so adorable.
It's so cute, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just incredible. And every week is different. And we actually just got off our first true illness. She had the flu. She had a fever, all of it. We went in a walk-in clinic at the end just to like make sure everything's cool. And yeah. And then with that, like we have a nanny. We have two sisters that kind of trade on the childcare. And so while my daughter's name is Zuzu, while Zuzu was sick, there was no childcare. And then my wife got sick and somehow I didn't. But it was just like last week was heavy. It's just so strange. I noticed that family rhythms take longer. I feel like they get obliterated instantly, just like all rhythms, but then they just take much longer to write themselves back into order. Like we had, our lives have been undone since the Nashville freeze like a month ago. Like We lost power for 4 days, which we got off easy, but it was just so disruptive. And then the next week, my wife had to go out of town, and the next week something else happened. And last week, Zuzu got sick. So it's just like, this is the first week where we're like, no, it's awesome. It's so great.
But there's like this, I don't know if you call it like an anxiety. There's this reality of like, whenever you don't have kids, you can usually predict your life. And whenever you have a kid, I think most people want to be able to predict what happens in their day. And like right now, you and I both are probably have our phone not on silent because we're like, I might get a phone call like, hey, by the way, your kid's throwing up. Your entire day is now different. So it's like, it's beautiful. It's great. But it is this constant, like, here's what I'm doing until I'm not. So let's see how this goes.
Absolutely. A lot of things at least many things in my professional life are conditional now, even in subject to change it with no notice, which is great too, because there's a lot of times I have to do stuff I don't want to do and family obligation comes up.
Oh, sorry. Got to go do this. Sorry. Can't do that one.
No, it's that whole thing. I think that's the number one thing that's been hard for me is to surrender some of that professional ambition. And, I like to work, and my wife does also. And we have a couple of businesses that we're building in the creative space. And at the same time, the day really ends at 3:30 or 4, and that's 4 more hours I would have preferred to just put into the business. You just can't. And so that's been, the consequences of that will arrive sooner or later, in terms of, in terms of some imagined metric. And I feel like I really actually feel, maybe it's probably a little early to say this for sure, but I'm totally at peace with that. Like I see the things that were so important to me when I was younger, and they are not that important. And I can't imagine. I want everyone to have kids. I think it's just the best thing ever. It just makes you more excited about your own life. And it also makes the things that are, that disappear, those opportunities and just the joys of youth, of health, of mobility. I'm like very fortunate. I have great health and stuff right now. But it's not like I'm not 22, and that's all fine. Like, let those kids play. Like, that is, you kids, I remember, go have fun. I'm not like, I see some folks my own age that are clinging to that a little bit, and just it's not the same, to participate in like staying out super late, going to shows all the time, as when you were super young. And it's not as meaningful anymore either, because you do realize it's like nothing really does change. Today's hot band is tomorrow's yesteryear band. Songs come and go, movies come and go. Anything that you're really is super important to you in the creative space. It's a torrent that goes faster. It's going faster than ever. And it's all being sucked directly into the past. And what you have in the meantime is your family. And God, so much better.
Yeah, that's how I feel about like going out to see movies. Like, it's really like, in my 20s, everything Christopher Nolan created, I watched. I would go and see in theaters. I loved. And now it's like Oppenheimer's 3.5 hours long. And I'm like, I'm just not seeing Oppenheimer. Like, but a decade ago, I would have been like opening night, midnight showing, like all this stuff. And now, like loved it. And now I'm just like, if I see it, I see it. And that is such a drastically different, similar to like, this band's in town. If it makes sense, I'll go. Whereas 10 years ago, I'd have been like, I'm pre-sale, I'm signing up for the fan club, I'm doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple like recording engineers where they've said they start to hold like dad hours, where they will only do sessions from like 8 a.m., 9 a.m. until like 5 p.m. or something like that, because they don't want to stay out until 9 or midnight or something like that recording people, because they're like, what they know they're missing isn't worth the session to them anymore. Do you feel like that resonates with you, or kind of entering to that phase of your life as well?
Yeah, for sure. I remember hearing, there's a very successful producer here in Nashville named Jakir King, who I think he's done a couple of Kings of Leon records, and
cool.
Just like his client list is a who's who of important bands. And he had that famously set up, it's like, I'm done at 5. That's it. And I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
And if you need it faster, then I'm not your guy, just like willing to say no. I absolutely have that. And I mean, a lot of it's just of necessity, just juggling responsibilities with my wife. But also, let me see, how would I put this? I feel like most of my creative day is spent doing things that are just like, honestly, like kind of boring and if it's posted, like either it's like posting on social media or booking guests or getting the studio in shape or endless amounts of admin that need to be like knocked into shape. My unbridled creative time happens first thing in the morning. Like I get up at 4:30 or 4:30. And that is because I have 2 hours of just writing time. I mean, my main job is writing. That's what I do. Sometimes it's songs. It has been songs for a long time, but I had a book get published a couple of years ago, and that opened some doors. And I wrote this TV show, and that's something that we're trying to sell. That's in the admin category now, but now there's a novel that an agent is selling. Whatever. But that time for me is non-negotiable, and it also has the least likelihood of kind of like 1-to-1 success in terms of like time spent on this activity may or may not be rewarding.
Yeah.
Numerically or otherwise. It's because it's just, you're striking out into the unknown. And I think that's, for me professionally and for me as an artist, that has been the through line through my whole life and something that I've always made time for and have had to. It's like directly connected to my personal well-being.
Yeah.
Just to have a try, I have to create space to try.
Yeah.
And so for me now, that has to happen before the family wakes up, because when the family wakes up, it's just, I don't know. There's just things that have to,
Yeah, no, it's my wife will normally go on a run early in the morning because she knows like when she starts the day with like the endorphins, she knows she's already taking care of herself. And then it makes you more available for your life realistically, because like you can't predict if your daughter woke up with a fever. You can't predict if your wife is going to wake up with a temperature or something like that. And if you're there while your like daughter's throwing up and you're looking at your wife and you're like, hey, actually, I need to go write for like an hour. Like I need to go do something else for an hour. Like
happen.
No, and also like, what are you doing here, man? Like, what are your priorities then? So if you know you can do wake up at 4 a.m., I think like once again, it always comes back to like identity in my head. If you weren't doing that, I would feel like I was betraying some part of myself. Like, hey, this is who I've always been. I'm someone who writes, and this is how I get connected with like the greater conscience, who I am. And if I'm not doing that, then I don't know who I am. So start your day off with a win. Start your day off with like, hey, I have some semblance of what my headspace is, who I am today. So now whenever I go to help out my family, be available for them, I know who I am doing it. Because if you start your day out not knowing who you are, that's a brutal start to any day.
I think that's very well put. And yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, it's like for me, pure creative time, like the craziest kind of like super concentrated creative time can't be done when the phone might ring.
Yeah.
Like even if I know it might, or even if I know like something else is happening out there, like Miranda's at work or there's some kind of moving parts floating around. I just don't have that level of concentration that I have like first thing in the morning. So it's no, it's total. It makes everything else better.
And to me, that just implies that you care and that you want to prioritize your family, or that like, if your daughter's crying, you're not just going to walk out of the room and be like, well, I got to go write a song. You're going to be like, all that other stuff can wait because my priority is now, how do I make sure my wife and child are like taken care of more than how do I get what I want?
Yeah, absolutely true. And that's there. And for all of my big talk about getting up early, it gets interrupted all the time for, circumstantial things. And you just have to be like, okay, like that's been hard for me because of that, like that my identity was, somewhat has always been like my self-discipline.
Yeah.
And to just be like, well, I just am not that's not going to happen today.
Yeah.
And you just have to be okay with that. And, I am like, really, I'm a kind of irritable, honestly. But I try to keep it chill. And I know in the big picture, like where my priorities lie. And it's like family first. And also it's just a joy it's easy. Honestly, it's freaking easier to help my baby and my wife than to write. Writing is the hardest thing in the world. And so there's a little bit of me, if I'm being really honest, that's like, okay, I guess I can't do it. I don't even like to say that out loud. You know what I mean? But it's just like, so it's not ever, I'm not ever mad at anybody. I guess let's just say that
oh man, I have to write the ending to this story, or I can, looks like my daughter's awake. Guess I have to go sit on the floor with her. Oh, this is an awful start. Man. Oh, does my wife get to sleep an extra 30 minutes because I got to the baby before she woke up? Oh, darn. What an awful start to the day.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny to joke about that, but to me, that's like too many days in a row of that start to be really harmful.
It does.
quickly.
It's a
for me
balance.
personally.
It's a balance. And like, yeah, similar. If there are times where like our kids will come and get in our bed and like fall asleep in our bed in the middle of the night or something like that. And then my wife is like, well, it's harder to leave to go on a run whenever like there's our bed is full of cute sleeping kids. But if it's like day 3 of it, she's like, no, seriously, I really need to get a run and make sure that like I'm taking care of myself. So it is, I think parenting just gives you constant moments in which you realize you need to be a little bit nicer to yourself and give yourself more grace, but also be realistic about it all at the same.
Yep. Fair.
What's that? And your wife works full time also. Is that correct?
She does. Yeah. She's works in the field as a genetic counselor, and then she actually books quite a lot as an actor.
That's cool.
She's a series recurring guest star on this show that's filming in Nashville called Nashville 911. It's on ABC right now.
Heck yeah.
So that's fun. But, we also both do some acting, and with that comes a lot of auditions that come in. Thank God, ever since the pandemic, almost everything is self-tape now. So you're not having to like drive somewhere, but the nature of it is such that often there's 48 hours turnaround time on an audition that comes in. We probably get 2 or 3 a week, sometimes more. And to be honest, I'm like so annoyed about them every single time I see them.
Yeah.
Like I'm grateful for the opportunity. It's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's weird about it is that you have an agent. We both have the same agent. And if you have an agent, it's like actually not a hustle to be an actor because you're not like going out and looking for the work. There are actors that are like, this is my version of it because I'm not trying to be like a Hollywood actor, or I think acting is a great side hustle and a really shitty job.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I keep it in the side hustle phase. And so I just take it as it comes. I answer every audition. I do every audition, and sometimes I book it. And same with Miranda. But like, for instance, she had one that was for a movie and it was due today, and we had stuff going on all day. So, and we have a baby Sunday, no childcare. So we had to wait till Zuzu went to bed, and then we're out there in the studio, like banging out an audition. And that, that's her thing. And that's part of my responsibility as a husband and a family member. It's like, I got to help her with that. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter how I feel at the end. If I'm tired, I've got to get up early, babe. No, I'm sorry. It's 8:00. It's like, this is due. This is what's going to happen. And so it's just showing up for each other. Also, just like, I truly am in love with my wife, and I hope that I'm her greatest cheerleader. I like to think that I am. I know what she wants to do. I know what her dreams are. And insofar as I can help her realize her dreams, I want to do that. It's a privilege. Also, it's just really nice to get out of your own head and just stop, not be just, it's so nice to prioritize somebody else that's worthy of it. That's a big asterisk, but hopefully you married somebody worthy of it, then you're okay.
Sadly accurate.
Yeah.
But that's awesome though. That's cool. So, I mean, do you guys have like, are you sitting in your home studio currently?
Not the where we tape. This is like pretty fancy.
It feels fancy,
this is where we film my podcast, and we have a bunch of this is a working studio. It's always something different every day. But our taping studio is like this other little room, and it's very primitive and not like, it's not supposed to look fancy. Yeah. It's supposed to just look like flat light and great audio and whatever. Blah, blah, blah. We don't have to dwell on these.
I think it's awesome. Here's what I'll say then is that I think one of the things that parenting can do is it's really hard to make sure that you're growing together with your wife, with your partner. And if you guys are still finding like daily opportunities in which you can cheerlead for each other, that's amazing. And that's awesome. And that's not always everyone's case. So yeah, if you're able to at 8 p.m. on a Sunday, look up and be like, you know what? I am tired. We just did a full weekend. But let's go do your tape. And like, it's a connecting thing for you guys. Hell yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly feel like so much of that is just having a habit. This is like outside of a relationship, but no matter how you feel, just like not letting that feeling determine the action of what your greater desire is, because it will pass instantly. It's like, I don't want to wake up that early. And every single morning I wake up, I'm just like, maybe I'll just won't do it today. Yeah. And I'm like, get up.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And then while I'm making coffee, as soon as 20 seconds later, or probably a minute and a half later, but not much more than that. And I'm like, the water's heating up. I hear the sound. The cat wants the milk. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I'm like, all right, it's my time now. I'm like truly excited. And it's the same thing like last night with Randa's audition. yeah, the feeling like entering that space, like she was tired too.
Yeah.
And so we're both just like feeling a little sluggish about it, but nobody said anything because we knew it needed to be done.
Yeah.
And then the second we're in the studio doing it, it's fun.
Yeah.
Because it's fun to be creative. It's always fun. So I just, you do that enough times and you remember that the next time it's hard in that one moment, Also, we just do things a lot together that are no more complicated than a walk around the block. We walk almost every day with the baby.
That's sweet.
And it's just like a time to just decompress and talk about whatever happened in the day and get outside. It's just like the littlest things are just go a long way, I feel like. So far.
To me, that's romantic. To me, and my wife describes it as like romance and connection also, is like, yeah, if you can just get a walk in together, if you can just be in each other's presence, and like, if you're on a walk, like all I want is like just to know how you are. Like, it's not like hey, here's my to-do list, here's what I need. It's just like, hey, for the next 30 minutes, we're just gonna one foot in front of each other and be next to each other and like hopefully connect and like check in. And like to me, that's romantic. To me, to take like, I'm really big on like little moments of everyday life, because to me, that's where like you can show character, you can show love, and show who you are to your partner and to your family.
Yeah, it's also just if you're genuinely interested in somebody, then it's not very hard in a way.
It's not.
It's just like they don't have to answer that call to intimacy, emotional intimacy. But if you are just like, well, what happened today? Tell me a story, or oh, that bitch, whatever. Yeah. It's just like I'm invested in this person's life, and what she cares about, I care about.
Yeah.
I think that's the same for her too. And that makes it fun, And again, it's just like, I'm exhausting. I know that I'm exhausting.
Relatable.
And I'm exhausting
like,
unto myself.
Yeah.
It's just like, I care about all this stuff so much. And so to just like put somebody else first, you're like, well, tell me something. What's going on with you is its own reward.
Right. And how I've told people before, it's like, I already know what mess this is and what's going on inside here. So if I can step away from whatever this is as he gestures to himself, that'd be great. And if I can get out of my own world, my own headspace for a little bit, and like I care about yours more than my own anyway. So like let's focus on that for a bit. Let's do that instead.
Yeah. It's a good way to go. You kids coming up.
Okay. Before we start wrapping up, tell me a little bit about your podcast. I want to make sure you get time to talk about it. And then I'll ask you 5 silly questions to wrap up the episode.
I'll try to keep it short. This podcast is called the Morse Code Podcast. It is named after this television pilot I wrote and produced with my wife, Randa, of the same name. It's called Morse Code. And why this? I didn't set out to make a podcast. I've been a musician for my whole adult life, like 8 records and 1,000+ shows everywhere. Made a career for myself. I'm not famous, but enough people on planet Earth cared about what I did that I got to do it for a living. Super grateful. I'm an intense book reader. I just have been since I was a little kid, and sort of knew always that I would be segueing into a more sedentary lifestyle at some point. And so I've always been moving toward living a life of letters, I guess you could say. And so that was sort of hastened with this, the pandemic that hit. And the curveball that happened was that I got into acting on accident. I lost my voice for this while I was making a record, and long story short, I canceled a bunch of shows, and it was really scary. And I was like, wow, am I going to have to do something different with my life now for a living? And in the meantime, I thought, well, if I can't do music, maybe I could make a living in film. A great backup idea. I'm making fun of myself. I think that was a terrible thing. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. But got really excited about acting, and I got an agent, and that one thing led to another. I ended up in the meantime, I had a book that got published of short stories, and I was kind of feeling myself. And so I wrote this TV pilot that started as a web series in 2017 or 18 that I would just self-fund in between tours. And that it kind of had its own momentum locally here in Nashville. And over the pandemic, I connected with somebody who is from here who created a show that ran for a couple of seasons on network TV. And he really knew better than I did kind of how to create serial drama. And so we teamed up and we wrote this TV show. I raised the money to film it with my fan base. We filmed it. It had a really great run on the film festival circuit last year, and some people got involved and are helping us sell it. And so with current indie marketing strategy with film, it's all about like developing IP around the main project. And so one of those things is this novel that I wrote that's pending publication with an agent right now. And then the other thing I created was this podcast to add more to this world. And it made, it was a perfect fit in the sense that the show Morse Code is about an indie folk singer trying to make good in music without alienating everyone around him. It's kind of a Portlandia meets This Is Us thing. It's funny, but it's grounded, and it's really a family show with a couple F words in it. So it's just there. I know all of these people, having lived here for 20 years.
Yeah.
I know countless examples of successful artists who have made it in their world on their own terms. And it's not glamorous always, but somehow they have a small family in a small house and they're making it happen. And so the podcast is these weekly conversations with folks just like this. And
cool.
Yeah, it's really like you. I get a lot of meaning out of it. The conversations are great. So the new conversation drops every Thursday.
Nice.
And about to start prepping the next one.
Nice. So, that's cool. That's really fun. No, that's awesome. And that's good to know. Cause like I always see like now if HBO or any major network does a show anymore, there's always the podcast that accompanies it. And I'm always like, I don't know if I want to listen to 12 episodes. Like, I don't know if I need a companion with everything, but you're right. It does make me know, like, if I want to learn more about this world, here's how I do it. Here's what they're doing. Here's how to learn more about the creator. So that makes a ton of sense.
I'll just say that there was a show that came out called Chernobyl. This is like 5, and that was the first time that had a podcast. And I listened to that.
Yeah.
I listened to the podcast and that made me like the show more. And I'm like, aha.
It did.
Yeah.
It did.
It always does because you get, you just know more about it. There's a show that right now called The Pit on HBO that's honestly fantastic. And it has a one. And I'm probably going to start listening to it because I like the show so much. So,
Yep. Well, I mean, I think the reality is whenever I care about something, I can connect with something, I do want to learn all I can about it. For better and worse, I get a little obsessive. So whenever The Last of Us season 1 and season 2 has a podcast that comes out with it, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to listen to every episode. I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. Worst ways to spend your time.
There are. Well, that's cool. That's awesome. Well, hey, how I end every episode is ask guest 5 questions. They aren't like rapid fire. They're just kind of fun, like questions. Okay. And you have time to think about them if you need to.
Okay, good.
First question is, do you have any backup names for your kid? Like anything you almost named her?
No. We had named our kid Zuzu.
Yeah.
3 years before she was born and before we even knew that we were going to have a daughter or before anyone was pregnant or anything. My wife and I met at a screening at the Belcourt, which is like an indie cinema here in Nashville. I'm sure you know it.
Yep. Very well.
It's a Wonderful Life. Granda's like Christmas tradition is to go see it at the theater. And so it was our first date ever going to see that. And so when things got more serious, I don't know, we just mentioned it once and forever the child's name, this unconceived child's name was Zuzu. We'd have conversations with yell at her in the back seat, keep it down, Zuzu.
That's sweet.
And so, when she was born, she was like, she's always been Zuzu.
That's awesome. You know what? I feel like I need to rewatch It's a Wonderful Life more because it actually comes up a decent amount on this podcast of people who like inspired by It's a Wonderful Life, watched it a lot whenever they were kids. So
such a great movie. I mean, it really is like touches on everything that's good about people or can be.
Yeah. That's awesome. Next question. Who's your favorite like TV, movie, or since you like books so much, like book dad, like as in like favorite character in a show or story, I guess is more accurate. Yeah.
A character in a show or a book who's a dad.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I'm really bad at these kind of questions, Devin.
What's first one that comes to mind? You can do that also.
Well, the one that comes to mind is like To Kill a Mockingbird.
The
girl's
Atticus,
dad. Atticus. But that's not like my kind of guy. He's just like a famous dad.
Yeah.
I think of. But it would be definitely like more of a troubled dad that's trying hard. My dad was like a saint, so it was not like emblematic of my own father. But
yeah.
Oh, it would be like this is just what comes to mind is Field of Dreams. Yeah. It's like my favorite movie of all time. And there's Instagram things that come up now on my feed. It happened one time and I watched them all. So now every single time, I guess one
You're
of them.
done
Like,
for. Yep.
well, it's just like people watching Field of Dreams for the first time. It's just like the last 4 minutes and these people are watching and they're just like, it was the father. But like that the heart of that show, and like something that I come back to again and again in my own work, is this inevitable distance between parents and siblings.
Yeah.
Even though everybody wants to bridge that distance.
Yeah.
Some families maybe don't have that distance, but I did and do in my own family.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what the show is about. It's about dads trying to be good to their kids, and they're not quite knowing them, not quite able to know them fully.
Yeah.
So it makes me shake.
My favorite Wes Anderson film is The Royal Tenenbaums, because I think all the family dynamics in that is fascinating. The whole concept of like, the hope is to have your kid be exceptional at something, right? Well, what if they peak whenever they're like 10 and then the rest of their life still exists? Like all of those discussions of like, how do you support each other? How do you be there for each other? Is just like, I think a fascinating journey that I also have a weird, like I get along with my parents, my siblings and stuff, but still some part of me is like, how messy can this be? How can you really support? How can you really show love to people that you love is like the constant question of existence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's eternal. Like these are the most important questions.
Yeah.
It's like a great place to live.
Right. And then next question, do you have a replacement curse word? Your kid's still young and not repeating your words, but do you have like instead of saying the F word, you say this word picked out yet? Or do you just say the F word? That's the most common answer, just so you know.
No, I definitely don't. And I never heard my father swear ever, not still to this day. And our kids definitely heard us both swear, but I'm not proud of it. Yeah. And I do, but I'm not going to. No, I'll just say it's under construction. I'm sure that strategy is developing and evolving.
Someone said once on here, instead of saying the F word, I say the F word. What's their answer? So that's just, it happens, man. Next question. What's like one of your favorite things to do with your daughter? Like favorite activity or toy that she plays with, anything like that?
I mean, this is just like cliche and simple, but we read a lot of books together, and
that's sweet.
It's such a joy to just have her sit on my lap. And some of the books have like little musical accompaniments. You hit a little button. Yeah. Not all. And she loves the music ones, and she just loves the book ones. It's so cool to see her have her favorites. And then she's already starting, she's only 14 months, but she's already starting to like know that when I turn this page, that's when it's, because the animals are going to, like, something bad's about to happen. Yeah. I love that. But one that's maybe more unique to our situation is the studio where we're at right now is behind my main house. And this is where we, like I said, we film the podcast. And for all the musical guests, or 98% of them, there's a performance as part of it. Yeah. We'll set up to have the band play a show or the artist. Most of the time, if she's not in her nap, she'll always be back here. I'll have the nanny bring her back. So she sees every single band. I mean, that alone, I'm just like, I grew up so far away from music and anything that was like, they could be called professional with music or any creative. So it makes me really excited to have her be so surrounded by it. Like she's on film sets regularly. We've been to, I don't know how many dozen shows already. We're having to like stop that because bedtime's earlier than it used to be. But she sees a lot of music. That's like one of the products of living in East Nashville, which is like small town and yet very close access to world-class things. That's awesome. She loves music. That's very encouraging. And also, like, I don't want her to be an artist.
I'm glad you love this. I'm glad we can connect on this. Don't do this as your career.
Don't take it any further.
Maybe go into publishing or something. Maybe be close to the creative, but don't be it.
Spoken like a true father, you know?
Right. And then last question, which kind of goes along with that. Is there like a moment of your daughter's life where you are like, man, I can't wait until you enter into this phase of life. I hope you get to experience this or anything like that. Like kind of like hopes and dreams for your daughter as you see her getting older.
I mean, the thing that occurs to me is when I was 17, probably years old, that was the first time where I was old enough to have a diluted or otherwise a sense of self and a considerable amount of freedom. You know, I could drive, I had a car, and yet young enough that the world just felt endlessly full of possibility. And that feeling is what set me off on this journey that I'm on today, that embrace of that feeling. So I hope that she has that.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a product of a lot of, just kind of self guidance. And I was always just like really interested in a lot of things, and you didn't have to like make me study and stuff. I just was like, if I was interested in the subject, I would just do it. But if I wasn't, then nothing would.
Good luck.
High water. Yeah. Good luck with you. But so, yeah, that was just like, I still look back at that time. I mean, really, it was like one night of my life. I remember kind of laying on my back in the grass of the elementary school where I had gone to school. I was a senior in high school, and I had like ridden my bike, and I was just laying there under this. This is in southern Idaho, under a clear sky in the summer, like 70 degrees. It was just like, this is my life is coming. Like I'm right there, and I can just do anything, and I can't wait.
Yeah.
And I hope that she has that feeling of excitement for her own life.
Yeah.
At that moment.
I do. That relates. I remember also getting out of like high school and stuff and finding a way to like be outside, be in nature, and just acknowledge how you were so small, but also so important all at the same time. And know that like whatever's ahead of you, here it comes, and let's go.
Here it comes. Yeah. Let's go.
That's right. That's awesome. And then last thing is just like moment for self-promotion. If we want to find like your podcast, your music, I mean, I don't know is it possible to find like the show you wrote, all that good stuff?
Yeah. Morse Code is the name of the show and the podcast, and the pilot is on YouTube now. We just put it up maybe in December. So you can search that Morse Code Korby if you want to watch that. And then the podcast is called Morse Code. New episodes come up every Thursday. I'm really active on Substack. Substack hosts the podcast. And I also write a lot around that. Every episode has a like pretty intense essay written about it. And I just have a pretty active presence on Substack. So come find me there.
I thought to do that for a while with Substack. Of like, I'll write like my own thoughts on the episode, all that. I think I did it for 2 and like just never created the rhythm around it. Cause it is creating is so much more intentionality and so much like it. I respect you, man. Cause it takes so much intent. If you do a write up for every single episode that you do, that's a lot of work. And I bet you do it well as well.
I don't know if I do it well. I try to do it well, but I also don't do 2 a week. So
yeah. Well, whenever I figure out how to say no to people, then I'll get on your level with Substack.
Yeah. Start saying no. Yeah. Or just say no, whatever. You determine the pace, right?
Yeah. It's up to me, basically.
People aren't going anywhere.
No, pretty much. That's pretty much all I got for you.
Sounds great, Devin, man. Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Cool. Thanks, Korby. See ya.
All right. See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Imperfect Dads Podcast. And make sure to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. Music, editing, and production is all done by me. Make sure to tune in on Mondays and most Thursdays for new episodes. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to go to neverafacednetwork.com to learn more about them.